Testing. Hi, everyone. We're going to start in less than 10 minutes. So we ask that everybody just socially distance and you can space out over here or over here. But we're going to start in just under 10 minutes. So thank you, everybody. Thank you. As we are here today calling for systemic change for us to have a safe future, we also call for our government to make systemic changes required to urgently meet all 94 calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We will not be satisfied until inquiry and justice for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls becomes the top priority. We will not be satisfied until every single Indigenous community across this nation has access to clean drinking water and the root cause of environmental racism in Saskatchewan and in Canada is addressed. Even if we meet the climate targets to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, we will have failed if it is not done alongside efforts to decolonize our systems and reconcile Indigenous knowledge systems as needed to protect us all, to protect Mother Earth. Did you know that globally, Indigenous people protect over 80% of the world's biodiversity? May we all move forward on a path of truth and reconciliation.
So just the last few announcements before we can get on to everything else. If you have any questions for organizers, we're the people in the white sweaters. There's 4 of us spread out. We'd like to thank our event supporters for their donations. There's the Regina Public Interest Research Group for the vests that some people might be wearing. I'm not entirely sure. The Robin Portraits from New Dance Horizons for the Earth art piece. Darren for the sound system, Gabe DePel from Unreal Media for video gathering the event, and Enviro Collective for all their support. Once again, wear masks, socially distanced, and of course, this is a peaceful protest. We are nonpartisan. Please respect the political representatives in attendance as they have made the right decision to attend this strike. We're here to demand climate action from the Saskatchewan government. And to talk about those demands, Mac.
It's been a couple of years since we've all been able to come to one of these events, but we've all had to overcome challenges during this pandemic. I think we can all agree on that. Yet look at us. We're back. This is only the beginning of this movement. During this past year and a half, we've come to recognize how important it is for leaders to act on the science. It costs us all when they don't. According to the International Panel on Climate Change, which creates extensive reports that analyzes thousands of scientific papers from around the world, and quote, with every additional increment of global warming, changes in extremes continue to become larger. For example, every additional 0.5 degrees of global warming causes clearly discernible increases in the intensity and frequency of hot extremes, including heat waves, very likely, heavy precipitation, as well as agricultural and ecological droughts in some regions. We have felt the extreme weather events here in Western Canada, droughts that impact agricultural producers and our food supply, unprecedented heat waves in the summer, and forest fires up north and in British Columbia that have had devastating impacts on communities. Climate change is a human rights issue. The climate crisis is already drastically affecting people on our planet who have contributed the least to this crisis, and those who don't have the resources to be protected from it. The IPCC also stated, limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees compared to 2 degrees could reduce the number of people exposed to climate-related risks and susceptible to poverty by up to several hundred million by 2050. Here are some other notes from the IPCC. Limiting global warming to 1.5 compared to 2 degrees may reduce the proportion of the world population exposed to climate change-induced increase in water stress by up to 50%. Coral reefs are predicted to decline by another 70 to 90% at 1.5 degrees and greater than 99% at 2 degrees. That means we have to limit global warming to 1.5 to save the coral reefs in the ocean. That's what they're saying. After 33 years of international analysis and collaboration, the IPCC was firmly able to say in their most recent working group report, it is unequivocal that human influence has warmed the atmosphere, ocean and land. Widespread and rapid changes in the atmosphere, ocean and cryosphere and biosphere have occurred. Thus, the United Nations is calling on governments around the world to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 45%, at least 45%, below 2010 levels by 2030. Did you know that Saskatchewan is the highest per capita greenhouse gas emitter in all of Canada? And while the Government of Saskatchewan has a climate change plan, Prairie Resilience, the current plan is to reduce emissions by only 16% by 2030. And given emission reports submitted from 2019, we are not even currently on that track to meet that goal. Also, Saskatchewan's climate change budget went down from $5.8 million to $3.3 million last year's budget. And the Government of Saskatchewan plans to increase oil production by 25% by 2030. Is that acceptable? No. We believe, so these are our demands, sorry. We believe that for the Government of Saskatchewan to show moral leadership in protecting the future and present generation, they need to, firstly, remake the Prairie Resilience climate strategy and legislate into law a target to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by at least 45% below 2010 levels, province-wide. This needs to be not just Sask Power. This needs to be every corporation and government in the entire province. Secondly, remake the Prairie Resilience strategy alongside Indigenous communities across the province and support Indigenous-led conservation to ensure that Saskatchewan's climate solutions are rooted in traditional Indigenous knowledge systems that have supported the biodiversity and life in this land long before this was a province. And our third last demand, create a just transition roadmap that helps workers in carbon-intensive industries move towards green and renewable jobs. We are the future, and we require a green economy in Saskatchewan. The young people have a vision that this province can have a green economy and can be a strong economy. Our speakers today will touch on stories and touch on these points. I will now hand off the mic to Ada to introduce our first speaker. Thank you.
So our first speaker is Brett Dolter, and Brett is an assistant professor in the Department of Economics at the University of Regina, where he specializes in teaching and researching climate change and energy policy, ecological economics, microeconomics, and sustainable development. He received his undergraduate degree from the University of Regina in 2003, where he was awarded the President's Medal upon graduation. Brett also received his master's in resource management and environmental studies from UBC in 2006. his master's in economics at the University of Victoria in 2011, and was awarded his PhD from York Ottawa's Institute of Environment and the University of Regina's Faculty of Arts. He was co-editor of the Handbook on Growth and Sustainability, released in 2017. He is currently undergoing research to model the cost of decarbonizing Canada's energy system.
Thanks, everyone, and thank you to Ada and Mac and all of the Fridays for the Future organizers. We're seeing what climate leadership looks like from these young people. The main point I want to make today is that we need government laws and policies if we're going to meet our climate targets. And what do I mean by that? We can look at the current laws and policies. So we have a coal-fired regulation in Canada. It tells coal operators they have to drastically reduce their pollution or shut down by 2030. That law means we're going to be phasing out coal power in Canada. That's effective, and we need more of that. We have methane regulations that require oil and gas companies to cut those emissions, which are heating the planet even more so than carbon dioxide. They're 25 times more powerful than CO2. We saw in the last federal election some ideas of other laws that are needed. Most of the parties now agree that we need a law that requires car dealerships to start selling electric vehicles and to get that target to be 100% electric either by 2030 or 2035. So that's another law we need to have in place. And we need further action in electricity. We still have natural gas plants that they don't pollute as much as coal plants, but they still pollute, and we need to get to zero emissions. So we need further regulation that says all electricity has to be zero emissions in the near future, 2030, 2035. For decades in Canada, in Saskatchewan, we've relied on voluntary action to reduce pollution, and it didn't work. And here, I think we can draw some lessons from the experience we're having now with COVID-19 and that public health crisis. There's 5 lessons I think we can take from the handling of COVID-19. One is that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Maybe you've heard that phrase before. It's the idea that you take preventive action to prevent the worst outcomes. So when it comes to COVID, preventive action means wearing these masks, keeping social distance, just like we're doing today, having the vaccine mandates for restaurants and gyms. When we prevent COVID, we prevent illness and death, and we stop our health system from being overwhelmed. And now we see the consequences of failing to prevent COVID-19. We see the public health system overwhelmed. When it comes to climate change, how do we prevent climate change? Well, it takes a global effort. We need all emissions, global emissions, to be at zero by mid-century. So it's global, but every effort counts. Every individual, every company, and every government can take action to help us meet those targets. Now, I teach in the economics department, and I'll still hear in the news arguments that action on climate change is too expensive. It's bad for the economy. This idea that somehow you can have an economy in a warming climate. Well, economists like me and many others look at this issue, and it's clear. The costs of climate change are much higher than the cost of reducing pollution. We need to act. Mac gave a good description of what those costs look like of climate change. They'll keep getting worse till we get to zero emissions. So we've got to remember that. When someone tells you it costs too much to take action, tell them, actually, you know what, it's going to cost too much if we don't. Second lesson we can draw from COVID is that it's important to listen to the experts. In Saskatchewan, we saw doctors asking for mask mandates, vaccine passports for weeks before any action was taken. They saw the trend, they knew it was coming, they asked for early action. When government didn't listen to medical experts, we saw the exponential case increase of COVID. On climate, we need to listen to the experts. They're telling us that things are getting bad and they'll only get worse unless we get to zero emissions. The third thing we can learn from the current COVID crisis is that nature bats last. What do I mean? Well, you hear when people are talking about COVID, some say, well, we'll just learn to live with it. Vaccines are going to get us out of this. People won't get very sick. Not as many people are going to die. Ideology seems to be clouding some of the vision of our political leaders. Despite evidence to the contrary. They're insisting that personal responsibility will lead to higher vaccine uptake. And it didn't work. This is an ideology of individualism. It leads people to believe that government is an impediment to social good rather than an institution that's there to maintain the social good. The same ideology is preventing action on climate change. It's leading our political leaders to avoid putting in place the laws and policies we need. But COVID doesn't care about ideology. Climate doesn't care about your ideology. When we burn coal, oil, and methane gas, we pollute. That pollution traps heat and has put us in a climate emergency. Nature bats last, no matter what your political persuasion. Fourth lesson, government action matters. We've seen what has ended every wave of the pandemic. Preventive action, government laws and policies. Case growth in Saskatchewan we hope will slow because of the indoor masking and the vaccine passports. When we have a collective action problem where we need everyone to act, we need a collective solution. And that's why we have governments in the first place. So we need government to act on climate. We need laws that say emissions from electricity must be zero in the near future. We need laws that say car companies can no longer sell gasoline and diesel vehicles in the near future. We need laws that cap oil and gas sector and bring that down to zero. Government has the authority. They can use it. The last lesson, and the lesson we can see here today, is that people have the power to make that change happen. So government was slow to act on COVID. Why did they finally act? Well, we had doctors and nurses standing up to demand action. We had individuals writing letters to their MLAs to say, get your act together and do something about this COVID crisis. And we see here today, people here demanding action of government. Just remember, government has the authority to make these laws, but people have the power to make that happen and hold them accountable. So let's keep our voices strong and demand climate action now.
So, up next we have Laura Stewart and Glenn Stewart performing Rising, and they will then share the message about it.
Hello, and thank you all for being here. And I'm delighted to have on the keys here Glenn Suter, who will be playing a set following me. Today, when we set up here, was the first. Oh God, you promised you'd never send another flood. Sent your sign above us, but I wonder if you would send someone to stop us if we made the flood ourselves. Some say we can't, we're just too small. We can't change your world at all.
I've also been writing a lot of music about being involved in this work for a long time. I thought I'd dust off one that's all about, you know, when you just need to find that extra bit of grit to keep going. Ocean waters rising all over the world. There are powerful men denying, with mighty flags unfurled. There are poor people.
Parents, grandparents, guardians, basically you don't even need to be one of those. Any grown-up who's concerned about the future of children, period. And from that perspective, they are taking all types of actions across the country, from having grandmothers divest in oil, to having schools switch over to electric school bus fleets. They do awesome work. They do so much. So, humble beginnings here in Saskatchewan. I'm trying to get a Saskatchewan group of For Our Kids going. And what I would love to do is have your support in meeting with school board representatives and asking that they address this emergency, that they they make changes in their curriculum, that they're teaching it more in the curriculum, and that they're also serving as a role model. We need to see the schools leading the way for all the 24,000 plus students who go through the K-12 system every day here. We need them to show that this is an important issue that needs action taken now, that they will meet or exceed what is laid out in the Renewable Regina 2050 plan, that they will meet the demands that are suggested by the IPCC, and that they will take serious action now. So on October 4th on Zoom, I'm hosting a meeting with a guest speaker from the For Our Kids Victoria group. Victoria was the first school board in Canada to officially declare a climate emergency and set out an action plan with tangible commitments in it. So she, this guest speaker, will be meeting with any of you who are able to join Monday, October 4th at 7 o'clock to talk about what her journey towards that declaration was like, challenges that they faced, and ideas. And I really would love to have conversations with people in this community about what they'd like to see our school boards doing differently in the near future. Thank you. I have some little papers here if you'd like to come in and get one for me for just the website for Our Kids Saskatchewan and any other information. Thank you very much.
The next speaker we have planned is Haley Watson. Haley Watson is 16 years old and is a student at Miller High School. She is part of quite a few groups, including Regina Citizen Public Transit Coalition, Miller's Permaculture Club, and Regina Energy Transition, specifically working on a fare-free transit for youth initiative.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I had never thought about climate change being a big part of my life. I had heard bits and pieces about the effects, but never thought they applied to me. Back a few years ago, I still thought my future was okay. Adults told me I could do anything, and I believed them. Near the beginning of this year, my view on the future started changing. I started to carefully consider what I wanted to do with my life, but felt a huge barrier. That barrier is the climate crisis. Right now, we are facing a tipping point. Earth is warming and will reach the point of no return. If this happens, life as we know it will change permanently. Dramatic weather conditions will happen frequently. Greenland will melt until it ceases to exist, and that ice will cause the ocean to rise. The millions of people that live near coasts will be run out of their homes. Food will become scarce as we are plagued by droughts and ungrowable conditions. Clean water and air access will become worse and worse. I'm saying these things like it's only a possibility, but the reality is everything I described is already happening. There are countless stories of people who have experienced these effects firsthand. The worse climate change becomes, the more severe the side effects will be for everyone. Climate change is not a political point, but a scientific fact. We must stop treating this issue as a matter of sides. The more divided we become, the tougher it will be to tackle. We must stop this mindset and focus on holding our leaders, regardless of their political association, accountable. Right now, the leaders of this world are not treating the climate change to what it is, an emergency. Scientists all around the world provide data and evidence of this. All the reports confirm this is an emergency, and we need to act accordingly. Changes must be made to the way we get our energy and live our lives. This isn't just for us, but all life on Earth. We are demanding a just transition towards green energy and a stop to the dependence on fossil fuels. We must start taking steps now to meet these goals, otherwise the burden will get larger. Right now, I'm working with a group trying to get fare-free transit for youth under 18. The current reliance on personal vehicles is causing huge emissions. This initiative can make Regina a more accessible and sustainable place. Here's my call for action for all of you. Please visit the website Be Heard Regina. Click on the Master Transit Plan section. Here, you will find posts from Regina citizens regarding transit. You can make your own posts about changes you want to see in transit, and I ask you all to please like the posts about fare-free transit for those under 18. Again, this is Be Heard Regina. Additionally, if you want to learn more about this policy, then please join Regina Energy Transition, or RET, for a meeting on Tuesday, September 28th at 7:30. To do this, you can go to their Facebook page, Regina Energy Transition, and message them. We'd love to hear your input. So many youth care about climate change, but struggle to know where to start in helping out. Begin by changing your own way of living. Commit to doing things we've always been told, such as turning off lights, using reusable bags, using items to their full lifetime. These small changes can collectively make a huge difference. Another thing you can do is stay informed. Keep updated with Regina's, Saskatchewan, and Canada's policies regarding the climate crisis. Check for reports and updates about the state we are in and educate yourself in the causes and effects of climate change. Always keep the climate crisis in your thoughts. Even if you don't believe it's a big part of your life now, I promise as society transitions to clean energy and feels the extreme effects of climate change, it will be at the forefront of everyone's minds. This transition is going to happen regardless. Right now, the uncertainty lies on when. Will it be on time? I'm hopeful it will be. At the beginning of 2021, as I learned about the climate crisis, I felt hopeless. How was I expected to plan for my future when I wasn't sure what the world would be like? I discovered groups who were demanding change and had a voice. It made me realize that people care. If we work together, change is possible. Thank you all for listening.
Up next, we have Amber Fink. Amber is a sophomore high school student in Regina, passionate about all things writing, activism, and performing. She has had the privilege to work with Fridays for Future Regina and other like-minded organizations such as Fridays for Future Digital, Youth Foreign Policy Magazine, and Climate Science Canada. Amber also has her own podcast, Teens Talk. In her free time, she enjoys record shopping with her friends, playing guitar, and reading a good book.
Hi, I'm Amber Fink, and if you don't know me, I'm in 10th grade at Campbell Collegiate, and I helped organize today's strike. First off, I want to thank my colleagues, Sid, Mac, Ada, and Stella, for helping organize today's protest. I'd also like to thank each and every one of you for coming out today and making your voice heard. I started getting involved in the climate movement when I was 10, first indulging myself in animal rights issues. I first got into animal rights with the philosophy that causing harm to any living thing should not be warranted, and out of complete disbelief for how easily we can neglect the beings we share this planet with. Once I began actively partaking in climate action and educating myself on the issue, this disbelief only grew. The government and large corporations in charge of the current unacceptable amount of CO2 emissions are knowingly causing an unimaginable amount of harm to not only the beings they share this earth with, but their fellow humans. The people residing in the areas most affected by climate change, and some of my dear colleagues, are currently risking their lives to have peaceful protests like we're having today. As I'm sure you know, climate change has incomprehensible consequences that we will begin to see if you haven't witnessed them already in the near future. However, this possible future, a present for many, doesn't only consist of drastic weather change, such as extreme flooding and fires. This future will consist of food and water scarcity, as well as conflict and war between nations over this lack of resources. This future will consist of mass environmental immigration, as people lose their homes and their lives. This future will consist of higher rates of poverty and much more extreme living conditions for disabled people. This future will become a reality if we do not act. If the people inside that building do not act and do not consider us during legislation. Looking around today, it's so inspiring to see so many of the people my own age or younger still in school. However, it's also kind of heartbreaking because the responsibility of ensuring a better future should not be on our shoulders. We shouldn't have to miss school because the people in charge refuse to listen to the educated. It's easy to fall into a state of climate doomism. I've been there before, but we still do have hope. The amount of degrees that we rise by and the harshity of this future will be reduced depending on the sooner we take action. We can have a future that looks like our present or better. However, to reach this, we have to act now. Our action must be intersectional and considerate of all barriers that exist in our modern world. There has to be a just transition to ensure eco-friendly jobs available for people currently regarding in the area careers that are large emitters. We must work towards a place of reconciliation, as the Indigenous people have been fighting this battle much longer than we have and have made up such a little portion of the warming in this climate crisis. To ensure a future that we can not only survive in, but flourish in, action must start now. Individual action is not enough, and our government needs to not only listen to what we have to say, but consider us in legislature. This action has to be immediate, and this, here, today, is the first step. Thank you all for joining me in acting for the sake of our collective future.
So, I don't know about you guys, but I'm really cold. So, let's do some chants to get a little bit warmer. So, when I say 1, 2, 3, you guys say there is no planet B. So, let's try that. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so when I say what do we want, you say climate action, and when I say when do you want it, when do we want it, you say now. What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? When I say climate change is not a lie, you say do not let our planet die. Climate change is not a lie. 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 When I say we don't want Vancouver drowned, you say keep your carbon in the ground. We don't want Vancouver drowned. 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 Our next speaker is Larissa Shasko. Just let me try to pull up the bio. I'm currently struggling with paper, so that's fun. Larissa is a Saskatchewan-based climate change public policy researcher, a contemporary dancer, a mother of 2 daughters, and a self-proclaimed eco-warrior. She is currently working on her PhD in public policy at Johnson Shoyama with the University of Saskatchewan, where she researches climate change, energy policy, innovative technologies, and youth engagement. Larissa is the current chair of the Enviro Collective Board, a board member of Wisconsin Solar Co-op, and is focused on nonpartisan advocacy for collective action on climate change. Larissa worked with Enviro Collectives to support the first Fridays for Future Regina climate strikes held. Throughout 2019, she has given multiple presentations, both nationally and internationally, on the importance of enabling youth to take a leadership role in energy system transition planning.
Hello, everyone. It's really exciting to be here today and to see so many familiar faces. Well, at least half of your faces, anyhow. Like Ada said, and thank you for that introduction, I'm the current chair of the board of Enviro Collective. And Enviro Collective was formed in 2018. It was originally founded by who is now City Councilor Shannon Zakidniak. So that was a huge success for, I guess, the organization to have a green councilor elected onto the city of Regina, and she's now there working to support local initiatives. But Enviro Collective really works to support people working and organizations working on environmental initiatives in order to connect people to those initiatives and help us work better together. So it's really about collective action and having an organization that can foster that collective action. And it's really been a challenge to do that over the course of the pandemic because we haven't been able to get together in person. But I really want to give a shout out to the incredible board of Enviro Collective. There's a number of board members here. They have worked so hard throughout the course of the pandemic and I'm sure and before and beyond to really make sure that that initiatives continue to go forward. But more on to today's initiatives, which is Fridays for Future. So this movement is incredible, and it's incredible for a number of reasons. But one of them that I want to talk about is the story and the power of that story. Striking and climate rallies existed for long before Greta Thunberg started this movement. But what's different about Fridays for Future is that it has this powerful narrative of youth and the fact that youth are leaders in this movement because their future depends on it. And so this story that this movement and the youth activists who are here today is very powerful because adults cannot have this same storyline as the youth activists can. This story that why should we go to school and when our politicians aren't listening to scientists is very, very powerful and very, very important. And the course of the pandemic has changed things. Many people have called COVID-19 a dress rehearsal for climate change. So over this past year and a half, we've learned a number of skills that will help build resilience. We've learned to rise above, to work collectively, even when we can't work together in person. And I'm sure many of you have gotten tired of your computers. I know that doing my first year of classes in my PhD program via Zoom was torture. And so I think that it's really wonderful to be able to be back here in person and to do something that brings fun back into the movement that we are in. So another thing that I've been really aware of lately is in terms of also the stories, is this idea of the apocalypse and the end of the world. Well, we see it everywhere. It's become very popular in Netflix series. It's always really been part of our popular culture, this exploration of the future and what if the world was to suddenly end. Well, a lot of the way that this is portrayed in the fiction world is that it's an instant event, that something happens and suddenly the world as we know it is over. And sometimes these series are post-apocalyptic and it's about how the world is surviving after that. But really the climate change crisis and the apocalypse in reality is not an event that's going to happen all at once. It's an experience. And there's value in understanding that. And there's even value in watching some of these series and looking at the characters and looking at what are these fantasy characters portrayed as who survive, and what is the experience like of these characters, and to think about what we are doing now and how can we actually work in those ideas in order to survive climate change. So I really want to stress that that we need to start thinking about climate change as an actual apocalypse that is occurring now. However, it's not the end of the world. It's simply the end of the world as we knew it. And let's face it, the way that we have been living our lives has not, as a society, as a global planet, has not been working anyhow. So what's so wonderful about youth engagement, and one of the great things that I love at the School Strikes for Climate, is this idea of giving youth a platform to imagine a better future and to have their hopes and dreams for a better future taken into consideration as we do this massive energy system transition. Now, I deal with energy policy research, which may seem pretty boring, but is actually really, really exciting, because right now we are undergoing the biggest energy system transition in human history, probably that will ever occur, and it has to happen if we're going to survive. So I know that politicians have been lagging on this for years, but it's a lot of change is going to happen over the next while, and it's really, really important that youth are brought into leadership positions to be able to inform those policy decisions. And what I've learned in my research is that surveys and focus groups and traditional methods of public engagement aren't really reaching youth the way that Fridays for Future can. So this movement is super, super important. And Enviro Collective has been working as a kind of parent organization with Fridays for Future Regina. And I have to say, I am continuously so amazed and proud and just like astonished by how ambitious this group is. So I'm gonna leave it at that. And I just wanna thank you guys so much for doing this and giving us a chance to come together today and have some hope.
For our second last speaker, we've got Mac Findley. Mac Findley is 21 years old and from Regina, involved with both performing arts and activism. He is inspired by people who use the creative arts to mobilize around important social issues. He received acting training as a cast member of Globe Theatre's Young Company in the 2018 to 2019 season, which culminated in the Sandbox series production of Concord Floral. Mac has had the privilege to organize with Fridays for Future Regina and is a member of the International Student Climate Network, UNIC. He is now pursuing studies in music theater and interdisciplinary social studies.
Hi everyone. So I spoke a bit earlier, but I'd like to. I wrote a poem actually a couple of weeks ago, and I performed it at a climate strike that was before the election, but I'd like to do it again today. I actually wrote it for this strike. So it's called Are You Prepared? For those destined to work in the building of steps and of seats, to serve those in your community, to cast the vote. On behalf of those right now, this very second, still in a day-to-day struggle to stay afloat, both in this geographic location and places referred to as remote, who are so consistently placed in the place that bears the brunt of the worst of this crisis that we all increasingly face. You step out with young people in the street, walking in unison for change, based on ethics, principle, and love in action, rather than the way of hatred and division. Feeling the tension of pushing up against a system, still paid to stay in its ways, rewarding the players who know best how to play this game. These days, for-profit pollution is still lawful, no matter how many of us are saying that it is awful. No matter, and as long as it's covered up good with promises of eternal economic growth, knock on wood. So with all this in mind in your presence, we thought we'd ask, are you prepared? Are you prepared to sail against the tide, that when you hold a ballot in your hand, you hold a child in your mind, sitting outside, wondering why yesterday it was blue with birds singing, and now there's smoke in the sky, water runs dry, yet still planting a sunflower seed to nurture this garden, the bees, the ants, the rain, the tree's shade, that keeps one safe on a hot summer day? Are you prepared to run against the wind when your words flow through the mic, that economically incentivizing that which is ecologically destabilizing is not right? To be blown off course and lose some familiar support, yet to believe in what is true rather than to follow the current politically convenient point of view? Are you prepared to go against the grain when in office you hold a moment to reflect on the pain, Louisiana, Florida, New York, California, the Bahamas, Germany, Bangladesh, Australia, the Philippines, Haiti, Mozambique, not to leave any out. But we could list this for hours, couldn't we? Without a doubt. Western Canada, Northern Canada, Eastern Canada, British Columbia, Lytton, Northern Saskatchewan, and Saskatchewan. Please take the time to think. Is there any more time to paint over and deny science's ever-growing consensus and precision? Or will you be the one to lead, to rewrite the rules of this system, have the courage to stand up for those who for far too long have used dollars and money to buy their way through the system, to build the bridges? The truth is that we all should too. And if there was ever a moment to realize, it is now. We can limit warming to 1.5, prevent the chain reactions, and save millions and millions and millions of lives. And lastly, as I speak to you today, and it's no lie, are you prepared? Sure am I. Thank you.
For our final speech before the open mic, we will be calling Wendy Laratte. Wendy grew up on Cowessess First Nation, located in Treaty 4, a territory along the Qu'Appelle Valley in southern Saskatchewan. She was blessed to have teachings from her father of the untold version of our history. Growing up and having the life experience of being part of the Nahiwa, Anishinaabe, and Métis community has guided her and provides an understanding of the challenges and opportunities facing Indigenous people. This understanding has been the source of inspiration for her journey.
Hi, Wendy.
Yes?
Hi, Wendy. It's Mac calling from Fridays for Future. Are you available to give a speech to the crowd right now?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Well, I'll begin by acknowledging the territory that we all are standing on right now. We are standing on the traditional territory of the Nayao, the Anishinaabe, and the Métis peoples. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I think it's very, very important. I want to thank the organizers. What we are dealing with right now is certainly a crisis. And those of you who are involved in actively addressing the things that we're dealing with, I want you to know there's a lot of people out there, more than you realize, that are just waiting. They're waiting, and they're watching, and they're listening. Right now around the world, and I don't know, I didn't hear the other speakers, but we're dealing with, the fifth superstorm this year, Category 5. We're also dealing with droughts. Was it May? The U.S. declared emergency drought, and that triggered into a huge, huge firestorm. Siberia is on fire. We're seeing now the warmest January that we had. It was very warm. Moving into the northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, they're entering into their summer season. And New Zealand, I don't know if you're watching, they're entering record-breaking heat as well. It has been a year of some areas colder, some areas warmer, some areas record-breaking temperatures. July was declared by the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration the hottest year on record globally. So what we are dealing with right now is a wake-up call. And what I'm going to deliver to you is what I hope, I want you to know. It's always important to give people hope. And that this is what I want to say in this short little time I am provided to speak today. I want you to know there is hope, because there is people out there that are ready to do something. But you need to be aware. There are prophecies that Indigenous peoples around the world, in respect to what's happening to Mother Earth, there are prophecies that have told us this is what's coming. There is a natural law. We humans can fight it, but they'll never win against it. And what we're seeing right now is the unfolding of Mother Earth's response to the actions of human nature. Right now, since 1970, 68% of the rest of creation's animal populations, I hate that word animal, the rest of our brothers and sisters have died, have gone. We are over-consuming. Our population is growing at the expense of the rest of creation. We are doing intensive agriculture, which I might add is really a form of colonization of the land. We are also dealing with an incredible amount of exploitation on many levels of human beings themselves. So my message to you today is, we've got to stop and we've got to rethink this here. We got to say what do we need to do? Scientists got together and wrote a paper 2 years ago, the trajectories of the Anthropocene, and what they ended up saying was there was three things they said, but there's one I want to just draw your attention to in that paper. We need stewardship strategies today. Stewardship. We need to come together. And this whole idea that there's this globalization and it's all been a mastermind behind so many really rich people, rich corporations that are sucking everything, even from humanity. So there's many levels to this. But where's the hope? Well, the hope is in people like you out there who are listening to me. I always tell my students, as long as there's one ear and one voice, we have hope. We need to acknowledge, though, our responsibility, not our rights. We don't have a right to destroy everything around us. We don't have a right to do this to the rest of creation. We need creation. Human beings are pitiful. Without the rest of creation, we're nothing. We need water. Right below you, right now where you're standing, there's an aquifer. There's a huge river, underground river. You wouldn't think so, but there is. It's running right below you right now, and it's fresh water. The world is in the middle of a water crisis. The U.S. probably going to run out within the next 20 years at the rate they're using it. It is not sustainable. So we need, at the local level, to remember our responsibilities. We need to remember. We need to understand. And we need to start being good to each other. There's a real colonized thinking. It's about me. Protect me. That's why we all have pension. But what about us? We're entering into a period where the Mother Earth is going to make it back to us. And someday we're going to be, I see it, I believe it, we're all going to be back to being those people in that little local area taking care of one another again, because we're going to have to. We are at the beginning of a great transition. It's been prophesied. You and I and those children that are around you, that seventh generation to come, we are at the beginning of it. So we need to say, right now, today, what is that seventh generation going to live like? Because it's up to us. The steps we take today are going to determine whether that child is going to have water. And that's our responsibility. Those that came before us, they took responsibility. At least in the cultures I come from. It's not about human privilege. It's about responsibility. Humans have an incredible responsibility given to us by the Creator. And we were supposed to take care of it. Look what we're doing. Look what we're doing. So my message today is we have hope because we are organizing and we are taking stands like this. But I caution you to make sure you're asking the right questions. And I say that one of the most important questions we need to ask ourselves right now is, if we were to define a stewardship plan, starting now, what would it look like? Because that's what that report said. And stewardship from an Indigenous perspective is inclusive of everything, because we need everything. Yes, we do need spiders. Yes, we do need snakes. Yes, we do need everything. And it's our responsibility to take care of even their seventh generation. That's the burden that human beings today have forgotten about. And the consequence of it, we've gone against natural law, and it's coming at us now in the shape of superstorms. And they're not going to go away. We just have to learn now, because we are now in the period where this is the consequence. We put it on ourselves, and we put it on the rest of creation. And so I want to encourage all of you, keep doing what you're doing. Just keep doing it. And even if it seems some days that people think you're nuts, you know what? I'd rather be nuts and on the right side of justice and the right side of equity than on the wrong side. So I want to encourage all of you today. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing it. You don't stop, I won't stop. Things are going to happen. Come to collective mind. Come to the place where you're not thinking just about yourself. You're learning to talk in ways where you're not arguing, you're not debating, you're not fighting amongst ourselves. We're learning to listen to each other. You have a good idea? I have a good idea. You have a good idea? What's your idea? All together. You know what? Those good ideas come with, if we don't fight, we come to a place where we understand one idea, one place, one direction. That's coming to using our minds in a good way, greatly for the collective good. As long as we can continue to believe that we can work together and to decolonize the way we talk with each other, the way we love each other, there's hope. And I think that's all I really want to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for your speech. It was so moving to hear those words, and we really appreciate that you had the time today to join us. So thank you, Wendy, and have a good rest of your day. We'll talk again soon.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So, anyone who wants to give a speech, we're opening it up to an open mic. Just a reminder to keep everything short. We are nearly at the 2 o'clock, so if everyone could keep it to 2-3 minutes max. Anyone who wants to come up can come up now.
I'll just introduce Erica quickly. So, and this is Erica. She's with the Saskatchewan NDP. She asked if she could come up on the open mic. So here's Erica Ritchie. Thank you so much for coming, Erica.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mac. Thank you, Ada, and all the rest of the organizers with Fridays for Future. It's a great honor for me to be here today and to listen to all of the speakers. I've been incredibly moved and humbled by everything that I've heard today. All of you, by showing up, by speaking, by taking action, are showing leadership on climate action. I'm the energy and environment critic for the official opposition, the NDP caucus, and I have the great honor to be able to represent your concerns and be your voice in the legislature. And I want to tell you that I'm incredibly humbled and honored to have that role and responsibility. This is an issue that is very close to my heart, and I want to say that I think that my generation has failed you, and the fact that this crisis has reached the point that it has, and that we have failed to take action, and that we find ourselves today in the state that we are in, is a great travesty. And I want to let you know that I am fighting hard for you in the legislature every day to ensure that that message is carried, and that I demand responsible action by our government, and that this emergency is acknowledged for the crisis that it is. I want you to know that you can reach out to me at any time. I want to hear from all of you, know what you think needs to be done. And it was great to hear the message that Max shared earlier about what his demands are. But please remember that it's by working together and by all of us stepping up and doing our part and working together collectively that we will be able to ensure that we move forward in a good way for all the people of Saskatchewan. Thank you all so much.
The last person on the open mic is Hannah Tate from the University of Regina Student Union.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hannah Tate, and I am the president of the University of Regina Students Union. And I wanted to just say a few words today about what students are looking for when they're looking for climate action. At the Student Union, we have been consulting with students and working on a variety of sustainability initiatives. We have our affordable transit program partnered with the City of Regina to make sure that everyone can access public transit. We have our community fridge where people can access food anytime, day or night, in a dignified and wholesome way. So we're really excited to have just started our community fridge. And I'd also like to highlight the Ursu Community Garden, where we are growing organic produce and providing it directly to our student community. Because this is what students wanted. This is why I was elected. And this is why the student union is, why and how the student union is representing you. And I'd also just like to make a special mention about the cost of education, because right now, the way things are panning out, we're going to need social workers, we're going to need politicians, we're going to need scientists from every field. We're going to need highly educated people to solve this complex problem that we've been left with. So when the cost of tuition is too high for us to get the tools that we need to fight this climate change, it is absolutely ridiculous on multiple levels. So I just wanted to mention this, and please always reach out. I can actually be reached at prez@ursu.ca. So please share any of your sustainability initiatives in the community, and we would love to show up and attend. Thank you so much.
So if there's no one else for the open mic, we've got chalking over there on the sidewalk, and that's the end of our strike.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out. This was so inspiring just to see everyone back. It's been a while, I know, but we are here for you. And we'd also like to say, we're going to be set up over at the table over there. If any of you young people, students, want to get involved with our organization, organize more of these strikes, get even more people out, get some momentum building, there's going to be a sign-up sheet over at the table over there. And our last ask is that you mail your count or email your count or your provincial MLA with our demands. 1, we want that 45% emission reduction in Saskatchewan. 2, we want it with Indigenous knowledge systems and Indigenous consultation. And 3, we want a just transition for workers. So you can just mail some of those points to your councillor, and that will make a big difference in the legislative building. If every single elected official gets an email in their inbox, imagine how big of an impact we can have. So so you can find more information about us over at the table. But lastly, before we go, I'd just like to give some shout outs. Simon over here from Enviro Collective doing some great work on the mixer. So thank you so much. It's incredible volunteer work. I'd also like to thank the gentleman over there, Gabe Dipple from On Real Media. He's been doing a live stream of this event. So you guys can find this online on our YouTube, Fridays for Future Regina. We'd also like to thank some Enviro Collective volunteers today. There was Yvette Crane. There is Rob Dagla over there. We have I don't want to miss anyone, but we have Paul Deshane, Ada's dad, and over there, and yeah, and Larissa also was a speaker, and she did an awesome job. So we really appreciate her. But yeah, guys, get involved. We're gonna be back. Trust us, we'll be back and doing this. So thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Because of course we always forget an announcement. There's also the Fare Free Transit petition over there if you haven't signed that already. Oh, you have to be 18. Never mind. Oh, no.